Hello, happy Monday. Thanks so much for joining in with me today. If you are live with us, if you're listening to the recording, I hope you all had a fantastic Easter weekend and are ready to take on this new week and spring, and the sunshine just is a whole new energy in this space, and I am here for it. So we're going to be diving into our topic of the month, which is all things gut health. I have been getting so many new patient consult inquiries, which is amazing, especially around gut health concerns. It's becoming more and more common. It is not make it normal by any means, which we'll talk about, but lots of different chronic gut issues coming into my private practice, which is very insightful to be able to see all of these different individuals' journey that they've been through. A lot of them have been through multiple different practitioners, multiple different functional or traditional medicine, really unable to find answers. And that's where I do really enjoy having some different thoughts and some different conversations to really start to bring to light, how does our body work? And when we can really get back and working in alignment with our body, it's amazing how many things truly fall into place. And it's just a matter of being able to provide our body with the right resources for healing, and how many of those common practices and practitioners out there aren't doing that. And we're just looking at the gut in a silo, and it really just doesn't work that way. The gut is responding to all of the internal and external inputs that it's receiving every single day. And if we're not in a position where we feel comfortable zooming out and talking about things like hormones and environmental considerations and thyroid pathways and detoxification and stress management, blood sugar regulation and HPA axis, it's like we can't talk about the gut until we understand how the gut fits into the frame of the entire body and the entire metabolism. So that's what this month is all about. I went really heavy-handed last week with different posts, different reels, our Learn with Flo around things like food sensitivities. That's a topic that I know I get a lot of in my private practice. Individuals coming in with multiple food sensitivities, or they feel like they have food sensitivities and they haven't been able to pinpoint which foods are bothering them. And that's because, just like we learned and talked about, it's not the food, it's your gut. You could sit there and spin your wheels and try to blame every single food under the sun, but this food is not a cause of our symptoms. And that is something that I really am super, super passionate about, because I've seen that slippery slope happen so frequently, where individuals do get into that mode of blaming the foods, certain foods, on their symptoms. And it can lead very quickly to disordered eating patterns, more anxiety, which leads to more gut health concerns. And it's just, that's not the root cause. So we really got an opportunity to dive into this conversation around the differences between food allergies and food sensitivities. We got an opportunity to talk about what is the real root cause reasoning behind food sensitivities, and what are some of the things that we should be thinking about instead. Which then really leads us into a nice segue into our topic today, where I see probably the second most common signs and symptoms of some serious gut concerns coming into my private practice, of individuals coming in with chronic bloating and or constipation. One of the most common diagnoses that I probably see on patient intake questionnaires is IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome. And I just really want to start there and help people understand that those symptoms that you're experiencing are very, very real. And it impacts individuals' quality of life severely, to the point where individuals are afraid to travel. I've heard that quite frequently, whether it's IBS because of more loose stools or urgent bowel movements, or even, like I said, the constipation end, where individuals are so terrified to travel because they're like, I could travel and not poop for 7 days, or I don't know how to eat outside the home, and so I'm anxious, like I won't even eat outside the home, I won't travel with my family. These are real life stories that I've heard, guys. That's how serious gut health issues are impacting people's quality of life. It's holding them back from truly showing up as the version of themselves, and they're missing out on life and memories because of their gut issues. That is not okay. And to go to a more through a traditional medicine approach, where they have to rule out the big stuff, right? So when you go to your traditional doctor with gut health concerns of specifically things like a bloating or a constipation, they're going to rule out anything big, right? They may do some palpitations on the belly to rule out any impact, any impacting. They'll run things like looking for maybe signs of infection. They're gonna order things like a colonoscopy or an endoscopy or labs, and a lot of times things kind of come back, barring some of the big stuff, normal, when in reality a lot of the symptoms that people are experiencing are far from normal. And like I said, they're greatly impacting quality of life. So I'm not here to help deal with the gut big stuff. Absolutely, that is outside the scope of my practice, and I am referring out for advanced gut health issues. That's what our traditional medicine is all about. They thrive there and they do so many good things. I'm talking about the individuals that feel lost because traditional medicine has given them kind of a clean bill of health, but they continue to have gut health issues, or they've been handed just like a simple supplement and out the door, or just been told to take daily Miralax and walk out the door as if like that's a solution. That is not a solution. That might be a temporary band-aid that comes with a whole host of different downstream side effects. So not necessarily a solution, if you ask me. So that's where I really thrive, is this in between, someone that is struggling but unable to find answers. So now that we kind of understand where this might fit in, we want to really meet this individual where they're at. When someone's coming into my practice complaining of bloating and constipation, especially for my ladies, that is impacting our body image issues. That's impacting even our relationship with food, because again, that can cause us down that slippery slope of, oh, what food is causing my bloating, or what food is causing my constipation, or it can get us into a dangerous relationship with things like forced stool softeners. As much as I hate to say it, those types of things are disordered eating patterns. That's that slippery slope that we go down with that diet culture, and it's messy. It is not a great place to be, and it's not a spot that we want to be in long term. So we want to be able to zoom out. And again, why are we bloated? Why are we chronically constipated? Why are we going to a traditional doctor and checking off all of the big stuff, but then just getting slapped with the general label of irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS, or IBS-C, which is IBS with constipation, and maybe not finding relief? So to set the stage and be able to really talk about bloating and constipation, we have to understand what it is, right? And kind of where it's coming from here. So when we think about digestion, we have to understand bloating and constipation are going to be the byproduct of a north to south process. If you've been with me before, you've heard me talk about this, but this is where I think then functional medicine honestly gets this backwards, because they tend to treat digestion from more of a south to north approach. They want to immediately zoom in and start looking at the gut. And a lot of times the gut is really just responding, like I said, to the overall hormones, overall metabolism. What is the state of the state? That's where we really need to start to zoom out and look at the gut differently. So if we understand and respect the fact that the digestion in and of itself starts at the level of the brain, we're having an entirely different conversation now to help remedy and reverse chronic bloating and constipation when we understand a top-down approach. So we have to think first the level of the brain, right? So when I think the brain is obviously sensing any internal or external signals of stress. This could be blood sugar dysregulation issues. This could be energy expenditure issues like over-exercising, under-fueling. This could be poor circadian rhythm patterns and sleep. This could be signs and symptoms of things like stress from infection. This could be emotional, physical trauma, all sorts of different things. Like we even feel that a lot of times where we get butterflies in our stomach. So you guys can attest to the brain to gut connection here. And we have to be very respectful of talking about things like stress management first. And I know that everybody hates when they hear the term stress management. And honestly, if I am ever bright enough one day to come up with a better term for it, I will. Because when I think about stress management, it's about your nervous system support or nervous system regulation. So that right there is usually one of the the pit stops that is holding a lot of people back from seeing success is because they're looking at their gut when they think about bloating and constipation. And I'm not saying I'm not going to get there. Of course, we're going to talk about the gut. But if we haven't talked about nervous system support first and talked about what is the brain recognizing as signs or symptoms or situations of threat, we're not going to get very far in the gut if we haven't dived into that piece first, right? So, and we'll kind of circle back to all these. I just want to give you guys kind of a high level approach. So we're going to start with the level of the brain. Then obviously we talk about the level of the mouth, right? Okay, brain to mouth. We know that digestive enzymes are secreted in our saliva. That's where a lot of our digestion, like mechanical digestion of breaking down and chewing our food, and chemical digestion of salivary enzymes comes into play. Again, we see food, we smell food. The brain, our mouth starts to water. Right? That's not by accident. That is by sheer intelligent design, that when we see food, cook food, smell food, we're around food, we immediately start to salivate because our brain has that anticipatory response of food coming in. So it gets the body primed and ready for that. That's great. We absolutely want that response, right? Same thing with like chewing our food is the first sign of our stomach being able to have to do a little less work. If we don't mechanically break apart and chew our food very well, it makes it very difficult on any of the digestive function below it to really be able to function optimally if we're not getting maximum saliva production or mechanical digestion from the mouth, right? Then we get into the stomach. And the stomach is where we really start to get that chemical digestion into play. We get enzymes from the pancreas, we get enzymes from the stomach with the hydrochloric acid coming in, we get bile salts coming in from the liver and the gallbladder. So there's a lot of good stuff that's happening once the level gets into the stomach, right? We haven't even gotten to the gut yet. We haven't even gotten to the small intestine and the large intestine, which is usually the signs of and areas of bloating and constipation, right? You haven't even heard me talk about those yet because the reason why we're bloated and constipated is probably a byproduct of what's happening top down, not bottom up. So that's why a lot of the stool softeners, laxatives, even things like probiotics and prebiotics, or any of the different like senna and kind of herbal teas out there that stimulate a bowel movement, we have to understand that all of those are just looking at the gut, and they're going to be literally a daily Band-Aid solution versus really zooming out and looking at total body influences here, right? Now, in the middle there, where I do want to pit stop between, yes, the brain to the mouth to the stomach, we kind of hear about those main points of digestion and potential culprits of why we might be experiencing bloating and or constipation because of malfunction there. But the one place I do want to pit stop and really give at least a little bit of a nod and respect is going to be the thyroid. And I keep pointing to my neck because the thyroid is a little butterfly-shaped gland that sits at the base of the neck, right behind, nice and protected. So when we think about the thyroid is the body's major metabolic thermostat. It tells the body, are we going to speed things up or are we going to slow things down? And that is in a quite very literal sense. So a lot of times individuals that do deal with chronic bloating, but mainly constipation, I always am looking at the thyroid. If we have hypothyroid or slow, sluggish thyroid function, we're definitely going to have constipation. So that may be one of those instances where it's not necessarily a digestive influence, but it's a little bit more of a hormonal influence that could be driving and slowing digestion. So the thyroid and the gut kind of work simultaneously. The gut can impact the thyroid and the thyroid can impact the gut. They go back and forth there. So ruling out and or treating any sort of thyroid condition can also help impact motility as well too. So when we think about this, I just, like I said, want to really reiterate that we're really kind of talking about three, if you want to throw in the thyroid, four main reasons that we want to pit stop and look at first before we just throw all of our money, time, effort at the gut. I think there's so many things that are useful in especially the functional medicine world. I love them. I feel like I belong to them in some way, shapes, and forms. And then there's sometimes where I feel so disconnected from that train of thought that I'm like, I'm not even with you guys anymore, right? Because I'm thinking bigger picture here. I'm thinking 3 steps ahead, whereas they want to come in hot and heavy and they want to do GI map test and have you poop in a box and send it in. They want to do food sensitivity testing. They want to do SIBO breath testing. They want to do parasite cleanses and heavy metal detoxes and correct your dysbiosis. And I'm not saying that there is not a time and a place and a rhyme and a reason for those things. Abso-freaking-lutely they are. But I don't feel like as a practitioner that it's right by the patient to address those types of things until we have a north to south process checked off first, because I'm telling you, sitting in my seat, I've seen hundreds of patients coming in with gut health issues, and maybe I can count a handful of times that I have gotten to that point and I've told them, I'm like, I feel like we might need more advanced testing. I'm telling you, going through a north to south process with somebody that has not had a practitioner walk them through that, I have corrected so many downstream issues by not having to get into those more expensive testing, laundry lists of supplements. You're going to take these antimicrobial supplements for 30 days and you're going to cut out all of these different things from your diet. It's just wild, the different protocols that some of these practitioners put people on day one of meeting them. And it's like they immediately order the most advanced labs. They immediately put them on the heavy hitting, like kill protocol type supplements. And they haven't even asked about their diet. I'm like, what's a typical day in the life like for you? When do you eat? How do you eat? What do you eat? How do we move our body? What's our sleep like? What's our relationship with stress like? What about caffeine, alcohol consumption? What about light exposure, activity level? I mean, there's so many things that go into why the gut is behaving the way that it is. And if we just jump straight to the lower gut, I see more and more often individuals getting duped by the functional medicine world just as much as they get duped by a traditional medicine world. So just be very cautious as a consumer of that. And this is where my platform is so passionate about education, and I want people to be very empowered and to be an advocate about their own health and be able to walk in to a gastroenterologist and say, hey, I understand that digestion works from a north to south approach, and it really starts a lot with my brain and my mouth and my stomach and gallbladder. Talk to me about that. What are we really doing to support more of a top-down approach? And you'll probably have them baffled, right? Because they are just so trained and so specialized in, they're like, well, I don't talk about that. I don't talk about the gallbladder. I'm not a general surgeon. I'm like, yeah, but you're a gastroenterologist, and they're just so zoomed in. And what you're going to get from them is if you have something big. You have something big. We have polyps. We have, God forbid, a cancerous situation going on. They're going to be able to help you with more of those big diagnosable type conditions that we need some of those more extensive testing for. But then, like I said, I think a functional medicine approach goes in too early with some of those big, expensive, let's be real, because insurance is not covering functional medicine at this point, big, expensive testing, laundry lists of supplements, and individuals that get themselves into a predicament because they're on so many supplements they don't know why, and they're on such a restrictive diet that they don't know why, and then they don't have an exit strategy. Nobody told them, how am I going to get off of this in the future? Like, okay, cool. Like, these are the supplements you gave me. This is the diet you gave me. I get it. We're going to kill off some candida, whatever that is. But what are we doing to make sure that it doesn't come back? Oh, we're going to do this supplement protocol to kill off the SIBO that you found or the dysbiosis that you found. But like, what is my exit strategy to reintroduce those foods and to make sure that the SIBO doesn't reoccur? Like, why is the dysbiosis there in the first place? Why is the candida there in the first place? Why is the SIBO there in the first place? Like, these are the questions that I start to ask. And so taking a more root cause approach to looking at things like bloating and constipation, you're going to get much better outcomes because you're addressing it from a top down and not just addressing the issue at hand, but really asking the bigger question and picture of why. Why is it there? And how can we go back to those types of root causes? So let me just, like I said, in summary, and kind of give a little detail and circle back to these three areas so that you can do, again, a little bit more digging. You can reach out and ask for clarification and consult with me, or at least just giving you guys a little bit more of an idea around what these kind of, the three main ones. If we want to give a nod to the thyroid, we would have a fourth major cause here of bloating and constipation that you probably haven't been talked to about, and you probably haven't been thinking about. So number one is going to be more of the nervous system support that is required. Our body has two halves of our nervous system. We have our fight or flight, or our sympathetic nervous system, and then we have our rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system. As you can imagine, in our world and in our day's culture, we have lots of things that tie us to and keep us stuck in this sympathetic nervous system state, this fight or flight state. And in that state, physically, like visceral, physiological reactions that happen in that state is all the blood flow shunts from the gut to the extremities, to the eyes, to the brain, to the pupils, dilate the pupils, pump my heart. I need to physically fight something. And so if we're stuck and we're over in that fight or flight state all of the time, even if it's like stressors of work, stressors of kids, stressors of finances, stressors of past, stressors of like all of these different stressors coming in, and we don't have any tools to manage or mitigate these stressors, our body is chronically stuck in fight or flight, and we just straight up don't have the blood flow needed to digest food, and don't have the blood flow needed to initiate things like peristalsis or intestinal contraction to stimulate a bowel movement, right? So if we're not looking at, okay, all of the different sources of controllable, make sure you stop there, controllable stressors, that's where we're gonna really be talking about those types of things. Anything that's eliciting a cortisol response that we can control, we got to be talking about that, or we're never going to get to root cause bloating and constipation issues, right? So that's step one, right? Obviously, there's a lot more detail that goes into that, but that's behind my services here, and so we can always dive into that in more of a one-on-one or course-based setting. Number two is, like I said, pit stopping at our mouth. Again, most of us living in that kind of fight or flight, go, 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 hustle, grind state. How many of us really sit and eat our meals anymore? How many of us really chew our food thoroughly? Most of us are doing 15 different things while we're also shoving food in our face, and our body has no idea or expecting food. Not to mention how much we don't cook inside the home anymore. A lot of our stuff is door dashed, and it's like, I was doing laundry and then all of a sudden my meal showed up to my door, and there wasn't any like cooking, chopping, smelling, tasting. There was no visual like preemptive or preparatory response for food. And so everything just becomes like a microwave type culture. And so with that, we're not getting our body secreting stomach acid, secreting digestive enzymes, secreting enough saliva in that anticipatory response of food. So therefore, we just have poor food breakdown. We're not breaking our food down very well because we lack the enzymes and the stomach acid to do it. We have low stomach acid, low pancreatic activity, low bile salts, all those types of things. So, and not to mention, we're not chewing our food very well, and it makes our stomach have to work really stinking hard to do that. So trying to chew your food to the consistency of applesauce, slowing down, put your fork down between bites. I know I'm guilty of this as well too, but how many times are you like, you're chewing a bite of food while you're also building the next bite? And so it's like we're like chewing and building at the same time. So the second that we swallow, the next bite comes in, versus it's like build a bite, eat the food, put the fork down, no hands. And it's like chew the bite that's in your mouth to the consistency of applesauce, swallow it, then pick up the fork, then build the next bite. But in our world, we just say like, I don't have time for that, or we don't make time for meals anymore. And then because of that, we're scarfing and we're eating very, very quickly, which can contribute to a lot of bloating and a lot of constipation because we have weak digestive function, right? So Those ones are big ones. And then, like I said, giving the nod really to the stomach here. I know I alluded to it already, but the more that we're in that fight or flight state, that chronic state of stressors, and maybe those stressors are blood sugar imbalances, hormonal imbalances, low thyroid function, like I said, anxiety, overexercise, undereating, poor relationship with caffeine, alcohol, poor circadian rhythm, adrenal fatigue or dysfunction, like all of those things that I just named off are all impacting your digestion. All of them. They don't even occur in the gut, and they're the biggest onslaughts that are happening to your gut. So if we're not talking about all of those things first, we can't really talk about, like I said, stomach acid, because you're just going to be supplementing it. And people are like, well, can I take apple cider vinegar? I'm like, every single day for the rest of your life and corrode your teeth? Sure. Like, apple cider vinegar is a Band-Aid solution. It's the same thing with digestive enzymes that are out there. It's like all of these different things, we can use them. And people are like, oh yeah, I read about low stomach acid, and so I just take apple cider vinegar every day. I'm like, you do realize that's a Band-Aid solution, right? You should be digging into asking yourself, why? Why am I not creating my own stomach acid here? It's just one of those perpetual cycles, right? Which is also one of those weird ones why things like reflux and GERD is actually a sign of low stomach acid, not too much stomach acid. So as we're taking all of these daily antacids and Pepsid and Nexium and all this stuff, it's like, we do realize you're just exacerbating the cycle here. You're not doing your body any favors, because that's just a Band-Aid solution, right? So you can see in our world how many influences happen before we even talk about the small intestine or the large intestine. So if you're dealing with bloating, usually that's more small intestine bloating, because we think of things like leaky gut or our food sensitivities, and it's like, yeah, but why is that there in the first place? That wouldn't be there if upstream was hunky-dory. Or things like our dysbiosis or parasitic infections or things like that. It's like, yeah, but that wouldn't be present if we had enough stomach acid to neutralize those pathogens. So that's where I just want you guys to be more educated and more confident, either going to your general practitioners and asking these types of questions, seeking out more practitioners that are more like-minded to get answers to your solutions, that are truly understanding the body as a whole, right? North to south, how does the brain influence here? How does the thyroid influence here? How do the adrenals influence here? Internal and external environment really coming into play for a root cause solution to things like chronic bloating, chronic constipation. You don't have to live with a diagnosis of IBS. You don't. It's really just a cluster of symptoms that traditional medicine is like, we don't really know what's exactly wrong with your gut, so here is IBS diagnosis, and here you're on your way. And so that's just really a shortcoming. And then individuals, like I said, are living with these symptoms that are greatly impacting their quality of life on a daily basis. And some people, it's even keeping them homebound, and they don't want to travel too far away from home, and they don't want to eat outside the home. And that's a problem when these types of things are really keeping you from living your fullest life. So hopefully that gave you guys a little bit of some nuggets of things you probably have never thought about when it comes to bloating and constipation. Most influencers out there are trying to sell you their prebiotic, and I'm like, that's garbage until you work on this stuff first. I promise you, you'll be wasting your time, money, and efforts on all of the different supplementals and stool softeners and suppositories out there to fix your chronic bloating and constipation until you've dealt with it from a north to south process. So you guys know the drill. You know where to find me. If you have any questions, reach out. If you want to work with me in more of a one-on-one setting, you want to get some comprehensive labs done, head to the link in my bio. You can click and apply to work with me there. And you can also find the links to Renew University and check out any of my courses on that platform as well too. So head back next Monday for more gut health fun.